In 2023, scientists watched 4 people die, not by accident, with their families' permission, and with electrodes recording every flicker of their brains. As the ventilator came off, everyone expected the same thing. Silence. The slow fade to nothing. But in 2 of those 4 patients, the brain didn't go quiet. It lit up. A surge of highly organized, synchronized activity, sweeping across the exact region we link to conscious experience. The lights flared, right at the edge of the end. That single observation cracked open one of the oldest questions we have. What actually happens inside your head in the final moments of life? And one patient, in a different study, would later describe real events from the room while their heart was stopped. This is inner cosmos, where science meets wonder. Today we walk right up to the edge, carefully, honestly, and we tell you exactly where the evidence stops. Because the real question isn't whether the brain lights up. It's whether anyone is there to see it. For most of human history, the answer was simple. The heart stops, the brain switches off, and whatever you were is gone. Clean, final, dark. But over the last decade, that tidy story has started to fall apart. Because when researchers finally looked with the right tools at the right moment, the dying brain did something nobody predicted. It started with rats. In 2013, a team at the University of Michigan, led by neuroscientist Jimo Borjigin, recorded the brains of rats at the instant of cardiac arrest. They expected activity to drop towards 0. Instead, within about 30 seconds of the heart stopping, the brain produced a surge of gamma waves. Fast, high frequency, and so beautifully synchronized that the coherence actually exceeded the normal waking state. And the connectivity from the front of the brain to the back increased. This was a brain not shutting down but briefly ramping up. Let that land. The brain does not simply switch off. But rats are not people. So the obvious question was, does this happen in us? That brings us back to those 4 dying patients in 2023. Comatose, on life support that families had chosen to withdraw. With the family's permission, the team kept recording. And in 2 of the 4, as the ventilator came off, a similar kind of surge appeared. A spike in gamma power, in cross-frequency coupling, in connectivity, concentrated in the posterior hot zone, the patch of cortex many scientists tie to conscious experience. Now, the honest part, this was 4 patients. 2 showed the surge. 2 did not. That is not a law of nature. It is a tiny, precious glimpse. And crucially, all 4 of these patients died. None woke up to tell us what, if anything, they felt. So we know the dying brain can be electrically alive. We do not know that anyone was home, but other patients did come back. And what they reported is where this gets strange. This is the wall the science keeps hitting. A gamma surge is a candidate marker of consciousness. One clue among several. It is not a consciousness meter. The very scientists who recorded it wrote, in plain language, that their finding does not demonstrate conscious experience, and that it might even be epiphenomenal or pathological. The leap from brain lit up to the person saw white light is exactly the leap the data does not let us make. So where does the white light come from? For that, we have to listen to the people who came back. Roughly 10 to 20% of cardiac arrest survivors report something extraordinary. A deep peace. The sensation of floating above their own body. Tunnel. A brilliant light. A life review where years flash past in moments. Meeting figures, sometimes loved ones who had died. These are near-death experiences, and they are real. And I mean real in a specific, careful way. People genuinely report these experiences. They cluster into the same recurring features across cultures. They can be measured on a validated tool, the Greyson Scale, built back in 1983. So the experiences themselves are not in question. What is in question is what causes them and what they mean. Those are 2 completely different things. And keeping them apart is everything. Real experience. Unknown cause. Hold both at once. This is where a doctor named Sam Parnia enters. In his AWARE studies, his team monitored patients during CPR across dozens of hospitals. In the second study, of the survivors they could interview, some described awareness. A smaller group reported a lucid, structured, recalled experience of death. Though when the team hit targets to objectively test perception, almost nobody detected them. One person caught a sound, none the image. And in a handful of cases, near-normal brain waves re-emerged on the monitor as late as 35 to 60 minutes into CPR, even with oxygen to the brain critically low. In the earlier study, Parnia's team screened over 2,000 cardiac arrests across 4 years. Out of all of them, one case stood out. A patient who later described real events from the resuscitation, from a window of time when the heart had stopped. Now, the purpose-built test, hidden images placed to catch out-of-body sight, detected nothing. But this one account of awareness was corroborated. One corroborated account out of thousands. That rarity isn't a footnote to hide. It's part of the honest story. Extraordinary and almost vanishingly uncommon. So what could be generating these experiences? Science has real leads. As CO2 builds up in the dying brain, that chemical shift can scramble perception in dramatic ways. One small study of 52 survivors found higher CO2 and higher potassium in those who later reported near-death experiences. It's a clue, not a verdict. The sample was tiny, and Parnia's own work didn't find the same link. These are competing, partly supported ideas. Nobody gets to crown a winner yet. And then there's the most seductive idea of all. That as you die, your brain floods itself with DMT, a powerful natural psychedelic, producing the tunnel, the light, the sense of leaving the world. It's a gorgeous story, and we have to label it clearly. Speculative. Injected DMT really does produce experiences that resemble near-death states. That part is observed. But that the dying human brain releases it in meaningful amounts to cause these experiences is a hypothesis, not a finding. Even its originator framed it as a question, not an answer. Remember that. A good story is not the same as evidence. So let's be honest about the map. Proven. Organized gamma surges have been recorded in some dying brains, and near-death experiences are real, consistently reported events. Emerging. What that surge actually means, and whether it produces those experiences, is genuinely unsettled. The scientists themselves say so. Belief that consciousness survives death, that something of you continues. That is a deeply held belief, and science can neither confirm it nor deny it. And myth that a brain surge or a tunnel of light proves heaven exists. The experiences are real. They do not prove a destination. Notice the two opposite traps. One side says a flat line means nothing could possibly be happening, so every account must be invented. The new recordings show that's too strong. The other side says the surge proves the soul is real. The data doesn't allow that either. The truth sits in the uncomfortable middle, and honestly, that's the more interesting place to be. And this is a moment to slow down because this isn't abstract. Every one of us will face this, or sit beside someone who does. So here's the line we hold. Science can describe what the dying brain does. Cannot tell you whether anything of you continues. Anyone selling certainty in either direction has walked past the evidence. This is for understanding, not a claim about your faith, and never medical advice. So picture it once more. Those two brains surging with a burst of highly organized activity at the very end. Is that the mind producing one final experience? Or is it just the lights flaring before they go dark forever? We genuinely don't know yet. So here's my question for you. What does your gut say, and just as important, would the evidence change your mind? Tell me in the comments. If you're fascinated by where science meets wonder, subscribe and stay curious with us. Because if the brain's last act might be its most vivid, it makes you wonder how it builds the experience of time at all. Next time, episode 7, we chase that one. Why time warps in your brain. Why a second can feel like an hour, and a year can vanish in a blink. We'll see you there.